إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, as of sunset today, we reached the third day of Rajab. We're in the month of Rajab, so it is the 3rd of Rajab, 1438. The 29th of Jumad al-Akhirah, the moon was not seen by myself and some others who would attempt to decide it, the heavy cloud cover and such, but it was seen in the Maghrib in 41 different locations. Therefore, we say that this means that the moon has been sighted in the nearest place of Dar al-Islam, and therefore we are on the 3rd day of Rajab. Today we're looking at prophecies from 1100 to 1200, which on the pagan era corresponds to 1630 to 1731. We had mentioned before two important ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. One in which he prophesied about the 500th year, another up until 1000, and another that was referring to 1200. Today we're going to find out what calamitous event he was making reference to regarding the 1000 or the 1200. There are perhaps 6 ahadith that have never been quoted in English before. And so we will be going through these tonight, because a big part of what happened, why we have 16 pages, is how important the events were that we are covering today. The events that we are looking at today have impacted and led to what is known as the Holy Land captivity, the captivity of Al-Ard al-Muqaddasa and Al-Haramain. Those places are muhtal, they're occupied, they're in captivity. This began around the 1330s of the Kafir calendar. Of the Hijri calendar, of the Kafir calendar, you're looking at 1920s, most likely. And it was precipitated by a number of very powerful events. One of them was Theodore Herzl's doctrine of Zionism, which brought the children of Israel back into Sham by Allah's decree. The second was the rise of the Khawarij, which revivify every 100 years. Such a prophecy is that powerful. There are this many ahadith on the topic. It is both shameful and irresponsible to neglect this. So the prophecy made was the revival of the Khawarij, as well as Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. This prophecy was made 11 AH. Its fulfillment was between 1100 and 1200. Now, we start this off by discussing Dhul Khuwaysirah, who's also known as the man whose hand, Dhul Thudayya, the man possessing a hand resembling a breast because he had a deformed hand and it looked like a small breast. It was deformed, and he was referred to as Dhul Thudayya, the possessor of the hand like a breast. Now, he was described by the companions as having, quote, a shaved head, a thick, unkempt beard, and his clothes tucked above his ankles. Dhul Khuwaysirah, at the time, the Muslims were divvying up sadaqah as well as zakat al-fitr to be sent to different areas that required it. And Dhul Khuwaysira came from the Banu Tamim, near the Najd region, and was due to receive a portion. He received his portion, but was unhappy with the portion he received, feeling that he should have received a larger portion because he was a leader among his people. So he said, Muhammad, fear Allah and be just. So one of the companions, which in the narration is Khalid bin al-Walid, radiallahu anhu, said, let me kill this man, to which the Prophet ﷺ said, no. And he remarked, leave him, for they have their people. If you were to compare your prayer and fasting to theirs, you would look down upon your own. Yet they will go out of the religion as a hunter's arrow goes out of the prey he is hunting. If the hunter should check one part of the arrow, nothing is found. The same is the case with the other part and the other side of it. Right, so this is collected by Imam Al-Bukhari. So when an arrow, this is using hunting terminology, when someone shoots the bow from the quiver, if it's shot quickly, it goes all the way through the animal sometimes without leaving a trace on the arrowhead or the tail end or the threading of the arrow, as if it had never even touched the animal. He says these people will go out of Islam like the arrow goes out of the prey, like it had no trace on it of Islam. Now, the Prophet ﷺ also spoke of these people and said, out of this man's offspring will be a people who will recite the Quran, but it will not go past their throats. They will go out of Islam as the hunter's arrow goes out of the prey. They will kill Muslims and leave the idol worshippers. This is again from Al-Bukhari. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said of them, they will exit from Islam just as the arrow leaves from the prey. Wherever you meet them, kill them. This is collected by Imam Al-Bukhari in his Sahih. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said of the Khawarij, they are the dogs of the fire. This is narrated by Abu Umama al-Bahili and taken from Al-Bukhari's collection. And Ibn Majah also has a mention of this about the Khawarij. He also, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said they will kill the people of Islam, which is from Imam al-Bukhari, as well as they are the worst of creation under the sky. This is collected by Imam Majah in his Sunan. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also told us they recite the Quran and they think that it is in favor of them, but it is against them. This is from Imam Muslim in his Sahih. The Khawarij are also prophesied to keep occurring every 100 years. The Prophet ﷺ said, they shall continue to appear every 100 years until you shall fight them while they are in the army of the false Messiah. This is collected by Imams Muslim in Al-Jami' al-Sahih and Abu Dawood in his Sunan. So we should understand this is continuous. Now there's a wisdom that we learn from this, because it means, and this goes with the jihad being extant, there's never a time where jihad will be nullified. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-jihadu madin mundu ba'athani Allahu azza wa jal hatta yuqatilu akhiru ummati ad-dajjal. He said, jihad has been extant. Jihad has been extant since Allah Mighty and Majestic sent me, and shall remain as such until you fight against Al-Masih ad-Dajjal. So jihad remains extant. وَلَا يُبْتُلُ عَدْلُ عَادِلٍ, and it's not nullified by the justness of a ruler. وَلَا جَوْرُ جَائِرٍ, nor the tyranny of a ruler. So someone can't come today and say, well, the jihad today is education. It's about getting your degree in sewing and mechanics and aeronautics. That's the jihad today. That's not what the Prophet ﷺ is referring to in this hadith and fighting the Dajjal. The Dajjal will not be fought with O levels, with the degree from Oxford, with your aeronautics degree, with Boeing and Lockheed and Air Martin. He will not be fought with that. It's actual physical combat. So the Prophet ﷺ also in another hadith said, there shall be in the end of time in my ummah people who will speak to you with what neither you nor your fathers heard. Take care and beware of them. This is collected by Imam Muslim ibn Hajjaj in Al-Jami' al-Sahih. Our Prophet Muhammad also proclaimed, there shall be at the end of time in my ummah false messiahs, liars that shall come to you and bring you speech that neither you nor your fathers have heard before. You should take heed and beware of them, lest they lead you astray and put you to trial. This is collected by Imam Muslim in Al-Jami' al-Sahih. The Prophet ﷺ also said, there shall be a group that will come and say to the people, we are scholars and sheikhs. We call you to the religion. Yet they are liars in that, and shall speak lies and innovate false rulings and false principles of theology. Take heed regarding them and beware. Beware. This is collected by At-Tayyi in Al-Kashi an Haqa'iq as-Sunan, Volume 1, pages 620 to 621. So we're being told very specific details. It carries on further. It's narrated by Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. This is the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam radiyallahu anhu. Now remember the hadith about the concern about what happens after 1200 and after 1000. He says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the 12th century there shall be at the oasis of the Banu Hanifa a man built like a bull, constantly growing in strength in his time, and there shall be tribulations and waves of killings. Now wait a minute. Banu Hanifa is in a place called Al-Yamama. Al-Yamama is a region. So the Banu Hanifa tribe are from an area called Al-Yamama. If you look in pre-1925 maps, before they did the redistricting of Arabia and create this blasphemy called Saudi Arabia, the maps show where Al-Yamama is. Banu Hanifa is a tribe coming from Al-Yamama. Al-Yamama is in the Najd region in Arabia. So, what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about is, on the oasis of Banu Hanifa, a man built like a bull, constantly growing in strength in his time, and there shall be tribulations and waves of killings. Those that follow him shall declare as permitted the wealth of the Muslims, using it among themselves as a wage and reward. They shall declare the blood of Muslims licit for spilling, and take this bloodshed as a means of boast and pride among themselves. This shall be a tribulation in which the lowest and degraded people will suddenly obtain strength, and the passions shall take them away, just as the dog is carried away by his passions, and may snap at his master. Okay, so this is cited by Imams Alawi al-Haddad, he died 1216, Muhammad Salim al-Kurdi, he died 1216, and Misbah al-Anam وجلاء الظلام في الرد الشبهي البدعي النجدي التي أضل بها الأعوام, pages 11 to 13. Jamil al-Zahawi, who died 1354, and is Al-Fajr al-Sadiq, الرد على منكر التوسل والكرامات والخوارق, pages 18 to 19, as well as Ahmed Zaini al-Dahlan, who died 1304, in his Ad-Durr al-Sanniya في الرد على الوهابية, pages 54 to 55. Abu Bakr al-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, he said of the oasis of Banu Hanifa. So we want to now understand, what did the companions, we know what the Prophet ﷺ has delivered to us. What do the companions historically understand of the oasis of Banu Hanifa? Abu Bakr, he said, it has always been an oasis of tribulations, and shall remain that way up until the end of time. They shall have their lyre, and this shall remain until the day of resurrection. Now wait a minute. We need to put this in perspective. Musaylima, the false prophet, was from the tribe of Banu Hanifa, from Al-Yamama. But he came out in the time of the Prophet ﷺ before his death. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, this statement is being given during his khilafah, not during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And he's using the future tense, they shall have their lyre. This means there was already an understanding that there is another lyre to come from Al-Yamama, come from this region. to come from here. There's already going to be another liar of some sort. They shall have their liar, and this, what is this? The liar, what he's lied, shall remain until the day of resurrection. Musaylima ibn Habib, his lie remained until the day of resurrection? No, he was expunged. Tulayha al-Asadi? No, he was expunged. But the lie that's coming shall remain until the day of resurrection. This was quoted by Imam Ahmed, Zaini al-Dahlan, Ad-Durr al-Saniyya fi al-Raddi ala al-Wahhabiyya, pages 54 to 55. The Prophet ﷺ said, "There shall be a great tribulation in my ummah in which no Arab house shall remain except that the tribulations will enter it and reach all the Arabs. Those killed for supporting this tribulation shall be in the fire, and the tongue during this tribulation shall be sharper than the blade of a sword." Again, this is from Ad-Durr al-Saniyya fi al-Raddi ala al-Wahhabiyya, pages 54 to 55. So this fitna that's being referred to is going to penetrate every Arab house. It's going to impact the Arabs. We already know that it's saying this is a man. It's not a beast, it's a man that's coming in the 12th century. It's a man that's coming. It's coming from the Banu Hanifa oasis, which is in Al-Yamama. This will impact every Arab house. He will have tribulations. There will be mass killings. Let us continue. In another narration, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There shall be a tribulation that deafens, makes dumb and blinds. This means that the eyes of people shall be blinded, the ears of people shall be deafened so they cannot hear the truth, and the one who seeks honor during this time shall have it given to him." Again, this is from Ad-Durr al-Saniyya fi al-Raddi ala al-Wahhabiyya, pages 54 to 55. We then have the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ who said, "There shall appear a demon in the Najd that shall shake Arabia with his tribulation and evil." This is an individual. This is a man. But the Prophet ﷺ has called him a demon. Remember, in Surah Al-An'am, the 6th Surah, Ayah 121, Allah says that they are shayateen from jinn and men. So a human being can be called a shaitan. Surah Al-An'am, the 6th Surah, Ayah 121. This is apocalyptic language being used. A human being can be called a shaitan if he follows after the pattern of shaitan. Therefore, we're referring to a man, a human being. Just as the Dajjal is sometimes referred to as a shaitan, a demon. Although he is a human being, he is a man. But he takes after the qualities of a demon. He has the qualities and particulars of a demon. This is from Ad-Durr al-Saniyya fi al-Raddi ala al-Wahhabiyya, pages 54 to 55. It's also mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ said, "There shall come at the end of time men that hide in the earthly life for the religion. They shall come to the people wearing the skins of sheep and hiding behind that, with tongues sweeter than honey, yet their hearts are those of wolves." This is collected by Imam al-Tirmidhi in his Jami' al-Sunan. There is another hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, "There will be a group of people who come out of the east reciting the Quran, and it will not go past their throats. They will exit from the religion just as the arrow cuts through the game without leaving a trace. They will be known by the shaving of the head." This is collected by Imams Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari and Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj in their texts. So the shaving of the heads, one of the reasons for this, the shaving, which Alawi al-Haddad and others who are eyewitnesses refers to, is for entrance into the Khawarij as a custom. The Khawarij would say to shave off the hair of Jahiliyyah and enter into the religion of truth. And you will see even today, people that are followers of this cult, they have a habit of shaving all the hair off their head as if they've been on Hajj or Umrah, leaving nothing but their bare shining scalp. And this is a custom of the Khawarij people. This is their custom. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated from the Prophet ﷺ, "The head of kufr is eastward." This is collected by Imam al-Bukhari as well as Muslim. There is another narration, ﷺ, "Faith is in Yemen, and tribulation issues from here where the horn of shaitan rises out." That's collected by Imam al-Bukhari in his Jami' and as well as Muslim, Ibn al-Hajjaj in his Jami'. There's also in the authentic collections from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said while facing east, tribulation lies here. This is collected by Imam al-Bukhari as well as Imam Muslim. There is the report in the collection of Imam al-Bukhari that is attributed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah put blessing in our Sham and our Yemen. Put blessing in our Sham and our Yemen. They said, and our Najd as well. He said, Allah put blessing in our Sham and our Yemen. They said, and in our Najd as well. He said a third time, that place is one of tribulations and earthquakes. And from there shall be the horn of Shaitan. From there shall the horn of Shaitan rise. This is collected by Imams al-Bukhari and Muslim. Ka'b ibn al-Ahbar narrated, the martyr has 2 rewards. There are 10 rewards for the one killed by the Khawarij. The great fire has 7 gates, and from one of them the Haruriya Khawarij issued. These originally came out and rebelled against the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam in his time. This is from Kitab al-Sharia, pages 25 to 26. So the Khawarij phenomenon has been going on for thousands of years. It has been in ummahs before ours. There, we also have the reference in Imam Ahmad's collection from the Hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah put blessing in our Medina, in our 4-fold measurement in food and grain, and our double measurement in food and grain, in our Yemen and our Sham. He then faced the place from where the sun rises and said, here is the place where the horn of Shaitan shall rise. He also said, from here are earthquakes and tribulations. This is collected by Imam Ahmad as Musnad, classed as authentic. Now, let's look at some of the people, because we put all these ahadith, which are firm by themselves. But now we're going to look at the history when we talk about East. Shaykh Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, he lived from 661 to 728 Hijri. What does he say about all these hadith about the Najd? He says, quoting the same texts that we just went through. We went through a number of ahadith. He saw the same ahadith that we're quoting. Listen to what he says. He says, quote, directly east of the city of the Prophet ﷺ is where Musaylimah the liar came from. This one who claimed prophethood after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, and many people followed him. He was fought by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Close quote. This is taken from Al-Jawab al-Sahih liman baddal ad-din al-Masih, volume 6, pages 127 to 128. Now look. Directly east of the city of the Prophet ﷺ. So he's saying when he faced the east, the Prophet ﷺ was saying this is a place of earthquakes. Where was he talking about? The place where Musaylimah the liar came from, which is where? Al-Yamama, and the oasis of the Banu Hanifa, which is in the Najd. This is the immediate understanding that he came to. The immediate understanding. So based upon all these ahadith, the understanding he's come to. Now we're looking at Imam Zaini Ahmed Ibn Zaini Dahlan, rahimahullah, who spoke on these ahadith and the history of events that followed. Quote, you should know that the Sultan Salim III underwent many tribulations in the time of his government, and much of it we have discussed. Another thing that he endured of these many tribulations was that of the Wahhabiyah. This movement occurred in the Hijaz and grew until they took control of Mecca and Al-Medina and kept the people from reaching it for Hajj, such as the people of Sham and those of Egypt. Close quote. Now wait a minute. Do you remember the hadith that we quoted before about how different parties and sectors of the Ummah were kept from reaching the Hajj? Different sections. He said that the people were kept from reaching Hajj, such as. So we have another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ we remember, which will be coming up next week, where the Hajj where the Hajj is prevented altogether. There was a year in which the entire Hajj was prevented from the rest of the Ummah. And Imam Ahmad Zaini Dahlan is referring to it here, which goes hand in hand with that hadith. There was an entire year in which there was no Hajj for this Ummah. This is why this is so important that we go through this. So the Imam goes on to say, quote, with respect to the tribulations of the French, when they took over Egypt in the year 1213 to 1216, in the years 1213 to 1216, this brought its own issues. But we would also like to mention these two tribulations in a brief manner so that both of them are discussed. but they are better laid out in the larger history works. They each have many researches that detail what occurred by many different authors that treat the subject according to its right. As for the Wahhabiyya tribulation, the fighting started between them and the Emir of Mecca by the name of our master, Al-Sharif Ghalib ibn Masa'id. He was the representative of the office of the High Council of the Sultan in the areas of the Hijaz. The fighting started in the year 1205, and this was during the rule of our master, Sultan Salim III, the son of Sultan Mustafa III, the son of Ahmed. The Wahhabiyya appeared many years before this fighting, and the context must be understood. Their power and might increased, and their evil did along with their harm. They spread their governance and killed people in incalculable numbers, declaring their wealth and women licit for seizure and slavery, respectively. The leader of this filthy madhab was a man named Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. His origin was from the east, coming from the Banu Tamim tribe. Close quote. Now, understand that he immediately makes the connection. He's coming from the east, from the Banu Tamim tribe. Remember, he's reading all the same ahadith that we're reading. He's reading all the literature that we're reading. That's why it took so long to get through all these ahadith. He has access to the exact same literature. And he's coming to these conclusions. He goes on to say, quote, he was a long-lived individual and had reached near 100 years, and the evil of the group spread far and wide. He was born in the year 1111 and died in the year 1206. Some record the beginning of the death of this filthy one at 1206. He started out his life as a student of knowledge in Al-Madinah the Radiant, near the tomb of the Prophet ﷺ. His father was a righteous man from the people of knowledge, and likewise his elder brother, Shaykh Suleiman. His father, brother, and sheikhs had all seen in him that there would come some disease and a strainess from him, and they saw it in his words, actions, and his disputing in many cases. They rebuked him, warned people from him, and Allah confirmed their foresight in the matter, and he began his innovation in a strainess and disease, which he used to lead astray the ignorant and contradict the imams of the religion, and that led to the takfir of the believers. He claimed that visiting the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, making intercession with him and the prophets, saints, and the righteous, and visiting their graves was shirk, along with even calling the Prophet ﷺ and mentioning him during the intercession was shirk as well. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab held the same opinion regarding intercession using other prophets, saints, righteous people, along with other affairs. Close quote. Imam Zaini Dahlan rahimahullah says further, quote, the people that followed him believe that whoever does not believe what Ibn Abdul Wahhab did, then he is an unbeliever, idol worshipper, and his blood and wealth is licit for spilling and seizure. He began to reveal his creed in the year 1153, although it was being spread in the year 1150. The scholars authored works against him, even his brother, Shaykh Suleiman, and the rest of all his teachers. Close quote. Now, wait a minute. There's two important dates here. 1150, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab returns from the Najd in Iraq. And the Najd in Iraq is where the Haruriyya, which were a sect of Khawarij that were in Iraq, where they had come from. So he comes back from that region to the Najd in Arabia. Initially, he was teaching this theology secretly. What changed in 1153? 1153, in Huraymalat, where he was at, his father, who is Sheikh Abdul Wahhab ibn Sulaiman, he dies in 1153. During this time, Sheikh Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab, the older brother, he's teaching in another district. 1153 is also important because it's the date that the most important book, pamphlet of this cult was written, called Kitab al-Tawheed. That is when that book was authored. Before that time, he was teaching loose pieces of text. At this point, now they have a book to rally behind in the year 1153, and he openly begins declaring his creed. Openly declaring his creed. Okay. So Imam Zaini Dahlan, rahimahullah, he goes on to say, quote, the one who would give him help spread his call to the different rulers, to the rulers of the East, was a man named Muhammad ibn Sarude, the Emir of Ad-Dir'iyya. He was from the Banu Hanifa, the people of Musaylimah the liar. When Muhammad ibn Saud died, his son Abdul Aziz ibn Muhammad ibn Saud took headship. Close quote. Now you understand what's going on. So, Ad-Dar'iyah. Where is Ad-Dar'iyah? It's in Al-Yamama. Where is Al-Yamama? In the Najd. In fact, Ad-Dar'iyah is the ruins of where Musaylima ibn Habib was from. All of this is all connected. All of this is connected. Now let's go to the next individual. We have Shaykh al-Islam Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab, the older brother of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. He died 1209 al-Hijri. Rahimahullah. He said of the ahadith that we quoted, same ahadith, same information, and the statement of Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah. He says about all this, quote, I would like to say that I bear witness that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the most truthful. Peace, blessings, and barakah of Allah be upon him, his families, and his companions. He truly fulfilled the trust and the mission given to him. Close quote. So what he's saying is, I bear witness all this has come to pass. It's true. Then the Shaykh, when confronted by Muhammad Abdul Wahhab receiving his books, his texts, one of his pamphlets, he says, quote, the aforementioned ahadith have many points of reference, and we will mention some of them. The Prophet ﷺ said, faith is in Yemen, and tribulation issues from here, where the horn of shaitan rises out. He mentioned it a number of times. The Prophet ﷺ made supplication for Al-Hijaz and its people many times, but he refused to make supplication for the people of the East being held as a place of tribulations in general, with specific reference to Najd. The first tribulation that happened after the death of the Prophet ﷺ was what took place in this land of ours. Close quote. Remember, Shaykh Sulaiman is from the Najd. He's saying the first tribulation happened in this land of ours. He's writing this because he's from the Najd. He's based there. He's oriented there. He's domiciled in the Najd. So when he's saying this land of ours, this is exactly what happened. The first thing that happened, the first tribulation, happened in this land of ours. He goes on to say, quote, we say that these matters that you utilize in declaring the Muslims to be unbeliever, and even making takfir on whoever does not call him an unbeliever, filled Mecca, Al-Medina, and Yemen for years. Indeed, it has reached us that there are things in the earth that are more severe than those taking place in Yemen and the two sacred precincts of this land of ours. The land of Najd was the first to manifest the tribulations in it. And we do not know anywhere else in the lands of the Muslims, ancient or modern, with more tribulations. Now here you are with your madhab, making it compulsory for the common man to follow it. Whoever follows it and is unable to manifest the madhab in his own land, he declares the people of his land to be unbelievers, and it then becomes compulsory for him to immigrate to you. You hold yourselves to be the victorious and aided group. This is a clear contradiction of the Hadith. For the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, informed by Allah, spoke of this ummah being manifest until the day of resurrection. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed them what was upon them and what was to come from them. If he knew that the lands of the East, specifically Najd, the land of Musaylima, was to be a land of faith, and that the victorious and aided group was to be there, and that it would be the place to manifest faith in its precincts and not conceal it, and that the two sacred precincts in Yemen were to be lands of kufr, where idols would be worshipped, and that it was compulsory to immigrate from it, there would have been some information forthcoming regarding that. He would have made dua specifically for the people of Najd and dua against the two sacred precincts. He would have informed us that they would worship idols and make disavowal from them. In actual fact, there was nothing of the sort. Indeed, he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was general about the East and specific about Najd, and that the horn of shaitan shall rise from it, and that there will be tribulations in it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam abstained from making supplication for it, which is in contradiction to your claim. Today you hold those who the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made supplication for to be unbelievers, but those whom he did not make dua for them, and said that the horn of shaitan rise from their land, that there would be tribulations coming from them, you have declared them and their domain as a land of faith. You have made it compulsory to make immigration to this land as well. The contradiction in your position is clear and obvious by examining the ahadith mentioned before, if Allah wills. Close quote. So this is taken from his book, The Divine Lightning, which is in English. We translated this. So we understand that he's understanding all the ahadith just as they are, the same way Zaini Dahlan understood them. We have the next Shaykh, Imam Muhammad Hayah Hasindi, The great Sindhi alim, he was a teacher of Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. He came to the same conclusions. The same conclusions that the others came to. We have another Shaykh, Muhammad ibn Abdul Rahman al-Afaliqi, radiallahu anh, chief judge and mufti. He wrote a book against Muhammad Abdul Wahhab in which, when he claimed to be at the level of the four Imams. It was known as the censuring of the mockery of the one who denies the following of the mujtahids. He then advised that he should not be followed as he is not a scholar, is unqualified. Imam al-Afaliqi also risked 2 assassination attempts. I didn't put that in the notes, but there were 2 assassination attempts. We have Imam Sulaiman ibn Suhaim az-Zubayri, rahimahullah. When he received a letter from Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he replied and also sent a copy to the judges surrounding his area. So understand then that the scholars are responding because more than 60 books of responsa literature were written because of the fact of Muhammad Abdul Wahhab sending out these pamphlets to different areas. That's what they're responding to. They're not just writing books. They were triggered to write books because these 22 pamphlets are being sent out all over the place. Right. So we'll see what Shaykh al-Zubayri, rahimahullah, has said. He says, quote, "In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. This is from the needy slave of Allah the Exalted. My name is Sulaiman ibn Muhammad ibn Suhaim, and I have sent this to whomever it will reach from the scholars of the Muslims, the servants of the revealed law of the master of the sons of Adam, the first of them and the last of them. Peace be upon you and the mercy and blessings of Allah. As for what comes next, it has certainly come to your attention that there has appeared in our land a man who is an innovator, ignorant, astray, and leading others astray. This is causing the disruption of knowledge and the cutting off of piety from the hearts of the people. This has led to many horrifying matters, hate-filled battles between people. Some of the things that have happened have caused hatred, enmity, and are hard on the ears to hear. This has not come to our land before, so we desire to send word to the scholars of the Muslims, the inheritors of the master of the messengers, in order that they would stop this innovator. The intent of this letter is to stand up for Allah and His Messenger, to assist the religion with sincerity. May Allah make us and you from those who assist one another in righteousness and piety. Some of the innovations and astray things that this innovator has brought are the following. He has gone to the martyrs of the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that are buried at Al-Jubayla. For example, Zayd ibn al-Khattab and his companions destroyed their graves in spaces because they are in chambers and they are unable to exhume them. Close quote. Now wait a minute. What is exhumation? What Shaykh al-Zubayr is referring to is, it was well known that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and his followers would not only destroy graves, but they would dig up the bodies, they would exhume the bodies and move them to an unnamed location so that they couldn't be visited. So what he's talking about is standard procedure, standard operating procedure. This is exactly what he's referring to. He goes on to say, quote, "They then decided to demolish their tombs until they are at the level of one handspan in order to keep away the animals. The one that buried these people was none other than Khalid and the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The innovator has also went to the masjid in the area and destroyed it. There is no proof for doing this in the revealed law, but this is only following vain desires." Close quote. Just remember this very quickly. The innovator has gone to the masjid in the area and destroyed it. Do you remember what happened in Mosul? If you don't, bring up YouTube and look at the masjids destroyed in the area. This is all carrying through. When people say, oh, Daesh and ISIS, it's got nothing to do with religion. Oh no, it's got everything to do with religion. I'd say they're some of the best Salafis of this age, because they're doing everything that Muhammad Abdul Wahhab did. They're perfect Salafis. They're great, just perfect. They're doing everything right. They're killing Sunnis. They're murdering scholars. Their rape gangs are going on. That's everything. It's just it hasn't been seen in a little while. You see, the Saudi kings have gone a bit soft in their doting old age. These guys have brought it back. So Shaykh al-Zubayri goes on to say, quote, "He has burned the text, the wonderful guidance, Dala'il al-Khayrat, due to the statement of the author, our master, our leader. He also burned the text, Meadow of the Two Lovely Breezes, Road al-Riyahin fi Hikayat al-Salihin, and called it the Meadow of the Demons. He said at one point, if I was able to get to the chamber of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would destroy it. and if I could get to the noble house, I would have done so, and taken the jewels from it and left it as wood. Didn't this person hear the statement of the Exalted One? Whoever should show reverence for the signs of Allah, then it's from the piety in his heart. Surah Al-Hajj, the 22nd Surah, 32. It has been established that at one point he said, the people for the past 600 years have not been upon anything. A book was also sent to me that read in one section, you should affirm that before me you were ignorant and astray. Whoever does not agree with him in all that he has said or bear witness to that, when he judges them with having committed major kufr. Whoever agrees with him and testifies to all of what he said, then he says to him, you are a muwahid, one who believes in Allah's oneness. This is even if the person is a rebellious sinner in total or a reprobate. So in reality, when one sees this, he will know that he is calling to the tawheed of himself rather than the tawheed of Allah. He then sent a book to our land that was brought by some of his missionaries, bearing his handwriting. Once opened, you could see that in this book he swore by Allah that the knowledge he possesses is not present in his teachers who claim to have knowledge. This is his claim. If this is the case, then he has no teachers, and neither his father nor the people of the land of Al-Adid were aware of this. They would have been astonished to know that when he was not learning from the teachers, he was making his own points. Neither his father nor his people were made aware of this matter. So, where did this man's knowledge come from? Who did he get this information from? Was it given to him as revelation? Did he see it in a dream? Or did Shaitan teach it to him? The oath that he took claiming he was telling the truth is more dear to him than all the people of Al-Adid. After that, he jumped and called both Ibn al-Farid and Ibn Arabi kuffar, unbelievers. He said that the household of the Messenger ﷺ among us were unbelievers as well, as they take oaths, and that whoever did not testify to their kufr was also an unbeliever. It was reliably established from him that when he was told the difference of opinion of the scholars is a mercy, he remarked, their difference of opinion is a trial. In addition to that, he started to destroy and plunder the charitable endowments and deny what was narrated from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and his companions, that they used to give charitable endowments. The same innovator removed the wage for Hajj guides, the supplication made for the Sultan in the khutbah, and gave his reason as, the Sultan is a rebellious sinner. It's not permissible to make supplication for him or praise him. We were then told that the sending of peace and blessings upon the Messenger of Allah ﷺ on Friday night was an innovation and a strangeness that will take the person who does it to the fire. The claim was then made that the wage the judges take past and present when they judge between claimants, and there is no treasure for them or maintenance, then that is bribery. This statement completely contradicts what has textually been handed down from all the Imams, namely that bribery is what is taken to nullify the truth or to make falsehood true. It is also bribery when the judge says to the two claimants, I will not judge between you except for a wage. This is actually bribery, not what the judges are doing now or before in ages past. Close quote. What he's talking about is filing fees when someone says, listen, I will conduct a marriage, but to file the paperwork, I'll need to take a charge to file the paperwork. These are filing fees and things that normally happen as you have judging offices and qada, places where qada is done. You have to file fees and things like this for stamping and to have things franked in paperwork. All these things, the same things that happen today. That's not impermissible. It's permitted. Imam Zubayri then goes on to say, quote, the one who offers a sacrifice on behalf of someone and says the name of Allah over it and gives it to Allah the Exalted has been named an unbeliever by this person. Likewise, the same thing is said of the person who negates the evil of the jinn using sacrifices and such. The innovator says of such a person that is kufr and the meat is impermissible for consumption. The scholars have only mentioned that the one who did that has committed an impermissible act, and this is mentioned in the commentary on the text, the uttermost boundary. Scholars, please clarify, may Allah have mercy on you, to the layman following these matters, regarding these matters, and protect these poor believers who are being deceived, their true creed corrupted. If you judge this as the best course of action, then clarify it. We will go to his statements and follow him. But if you should see this as a mistake, call us away from it, push us away from it, and make clear to the people the error in this matter. Many people in this land have already been tested with great trial by this individual. May Allah have mercy on you. We seek to have the matter explained before false thoughts come into the souls of the people. The answer is being sought from you, and that it is found by whoever maintains it. Those who maintain it are those who have knowledge and deep insight of the judgment of Allah and His Messenger, as that is how the truth manifested when it is threatened, and the same way that falsehood is repelled. Close quote. So this is taken from the Tarikh al-Najd, pages 270 to 273. Now, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab gave a reply to this in Tarikh al-Najd, pages 298 to 299. And I want you to see what he said in response to the letter. His response. Now remember, Tarikh al-Najd, this is Salafi history written by Salafis. They're proud of this history. Now I could have sat down and quoted all the times where they bragged about raping, all the times they took slaves. I could have sat down and quoted all this stuff. But it's too expensive to sit down and do this, and it's too much to tax your ears. So I'll give you this quote that he gave, and I want you to understand this is a man that appeared in this time after all these prophecies, all these things. This man has appeared. So Muhammad Abdul Wahhab says to Shaykh ibn Suhaym, he says, quote, "It is clear what Sulaiman ibn Suhaym knows, and that you have taken the matters and amazing statements that have been sent to you in the letter. This person has very little understanding, and that is clear. And this is the most evil understanding. This is further worsened by the fact that you use deception on the ignorant people, so you are deceivers. Before we tender an answer, we will say to you that both you and your fathers speak with open kufr, shirk, and nifaq. You actually do this at every turn and in every possible way. The people, for some reason, think that you are scholars. And we want you and love that Allah would guide you and them. Up until now, you and your father have not understood the testimony of faith that there is no God but Allah." Close quote. And understand, he's saying you haven't understood Tawheed. You haven't understood the Tawheed, and for some reason, people think you're scholars. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that for the past 500 years you come from family of Muraji'. For some reason, people think you're knowledgeable. But I say, you haven't understood La ilaha illallah yet. If someone doesn't understand La ilaha illallah, he's a kafir. You can teach 1,000 Koreans to say La ilaha illallah in Seoul, and they won't know what it means. They're still mushriks. So he goes on to say, quote, "I bear witness, using the testimony that Allah will ask me about on the day of resurrection, that you do not know the testimony of faith, even right now, neither you nor your father. We will reveal the matter to you clearly and without doubt, so that you can repent to Allah and enter into the faith of Islam, if Allah should guide you. If not, then it has now become clear to every person that believes in Allah on the last day regarding the state of the two of you, that there is no prayer to be made behind you. Your witness is not accepted, nor your charity, and it is compulsory to hate you. This is just as Allah has said. You will not find a people believing in Allah on the last day, showing love for those who oppose Allah and His Messenger." Surah Al-Mujadilah, the 58th Surah, Ayah 22. Close quote. So this is from Tarikh al-Najd, pages 298 to 299. It's self-explanatory enough to where you don't need to do a lot of commentary on this. So you understand, this is the level of fitna that the scholars are dealing with. Okay? So we have Imam Abdullah bin Suhaym, rahimahullah, weighed in, and he received the two Muwahidun missionaries, because at this point they weren't called Salafis yet. They were calling themselves the Muwahidun, those who believe in Allah's oneness. That's what they were calling themselves. The word Salafi did not come in until Muhammad Abdu, who died in 1905. That's when they started calling themselves Salafi. Before then, they were called Al-Muwahidun. They were also called Al-Ikhwan, the Brotherhood. Sounds like Freemasonry, I know. I'm not kidding. It sounds like Freemasonry. It does. Now, the Muwahidun also went to Abdul Muhsin ibn Ali al-Ushayqiri, and he died 1187. And he spoke against them. He's quoted by Imam Muhammad ibn Fayruz al-Hanbali, who said, quote, "Imam Abdul Muhsin ibn Ali al-Ushayqiri, he came from our land and learned from our people. He learned from the Mukhtasar al-Muqni' from his father, and did so up until the Book of Inheritance. Then his father died, and he studied from al-Muntaha until he completed it and became a jurist, faqih. He had great manners and had a wide knowledge of fiqh, inheritance, math, and Arabic. He authored a work in refutation of the oppressive and transgressing innovator, and quoted from Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn Qayyim. The people of Az-Zubayr then asked me to give permission for him to be their Imam and teacher on Fridays, and their expounder in law. I gave permission, and he traveled to them, and was an honor for them, and he was respected, and his words were accepted by them. This went on until Allah caused him to die a martyr due to a plague at the end of the Al-Hajj in the year 1187. Close quote. So this is taken from As-Suhub al-Wabila ala Dara'ih al-Hanabila, volume 2, pages 669 to 670. Imam Muhammad ibn Al-Hajj Ahmed As-Safarini, he wrote a book called Al-Ajwibat al-Najdiyya an al-As'ilat al-Najdiyya, answers on Najd regarding questions about Najd. Okay, this is a major work that he wrote. He also stated in one text regarding the danger of takfir being used. He said, quote, So when mention is made of some of the evil thoughts and actions of the people of innovation and straightness, and you label them with a straightness and carrying falsehood. The text of the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, mentioned this matter after making clear the way of the people of truth and the path of the companions of the true way and certainty. It was as if he was saying that what is compulsory to believe has already been made clear regarding those who differ with us from the people of innovation. So beware that you speak their statements. Believe as they do. And when you understand all of that, you need to stick with the madhab of the people of truth. So you are not to believe in labeling as unbelievers the people who pray and they have established one of the pillars of Islam and basic points of the religion. It is impermissible to kill them. Close quote. He had to actually say it's impermissible to kill them. What does that make you understand about what's going on at the time? It's impermissible to kill these people. People that pray, it's impermissible to kill them. He goes on to say, quote, Kufr is the opposite of faith, and the unbeliever who did the act is also either ungrateful or a true unbeliever. This is based on the pronunciation of the word, its root, and so forth. Then there is the Hadith, whoever said to his brother, unbeliever, then one of them is that. The reason for this is that he is either telling the truth or he is lying. If he is telling the truth, then the person referred to as an unbeliever. If he is lying, then the charge of kufr returns to him due to his labeling as Muslim brother and unbeliever. Close quote. So this is taken from Lawah al-Anwar al-Sanniya wa Lawaqih al-Afkar al-Sanniya, volume 2, pages 271 to 272. He also wrote a text with one of his teachers. Imam al-Safani wrote a text with one of his teachers, Shihabuddin al-Manini, in which he referred to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab as a false prophet and also said he did not have the conditions of ijtihad. This text is known as Al-Jawab al-Sahih. Imam Isa al-Qudumi also carried these texts to the Najd by Imam al-Safarini because Imam al-Safarini was from Sham. And so he, subhanAllah, these people had the nerve to write him a letter from the Najd. So, Imam Muhammad al-Safarini, one of the greatest muraji' to have ever lived, was sent a letter by Muhammad Abdul Wahhab calling him to Tawheed. So he sat down and between Dhuhr and Asr wrote 4 volumes of literature and then sent it to the Najd. Right. This is, you see, because the rallying cry of Quran and Sunnah, right? Quran and Sunnah, ala fahm sahaba, the Quran and the Sunnah on the understanding of the companions. That rallying cry was what was used against everything else that had ever been said. It didn't matter. Listen, this person's the maraj of his time. Look at all these maraj, everything else. They're still kuffar. Because I'm giving you the clear ayat from the Quran. I don't care about any scholar. I don't blind follow anybody. Sound familiar? It's said very often. I don't blind follow. I follow the book and the Sunnah. Yeah, well, how can your understanding be the only understanding, though? And so this is why so many people said this man's a false prophet. Because if you take away the ability of understanding the revelation and say that the revelation can only be known through you, the only person that would say such a thing is a prophet. And because there are no more prophets, you are a false prophet. And as we'll see going through, most of the muraji' make all the links, they all make the links. And most of them also, when making reference to him, make reference to Musaylimah the liar, Tulayha al-Asadi, all these different, Al-Aswad al-Ansi, they all keep making these references. Now, we have Imam Saif ibn Ahmed al-Atiqi, rahimahullah, he died 1189. He also rejected the pamphlets sent out. Imam Ibn Sulaym, who died 1197, he rejected all the pamphlets. There were 22 pamphlets. He received them and rejected all the pamphlets. Imam Muhammad Sulaiman al-Kurdi, he died 1216. He reiterated numerous times, quote, "Praise be to Allah alone. There's no doubt in that the knowledge of deriving rulings is taken from scholars. So whoever has his books as his Shaikh, then his mistakes are more than when he's correct. The claims of absolute ijtihad today are generally coming from the slave who is far from it." Imam Rafi'i and Nawawi and those who preceded them, like Fakhruddin al-Razi, have come to agree then, as today, that there are no absolute mujtahids. Imam Ibn Hajar al-Haytami has mentioned in his rulings that there has not been an absolute mujtahid since the time of Imam al-Shafi'i and his contemporaries. Imam Ibn al-Salah said it many more times than has said it has been more than 3 centuries since an absolute mujtahid has existed. So the one who is claiming this, it is necessary such a one return to the truth and abandon false hopes. With regard to his calling Muslims unbelievers, then it has been explicitly stated by the Messenger ﷺ, when the man says to the other unbeliever, then one of them is an unbeliever. So the one who is throwing such a charge at a Muslim is the unbeliever, according to Ash-Sharh al-Kabir by Imam al-Rafi'i. This is because he is calling Islam kufr, and this is followed by Imam al-Nawawi and is the dependent upon ruling for the latter-day scholars of the school. Close quote. This is taken from Misbah al-Anam, pages 161 to 164. Imam Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Fayruz al-Hanbali rahimahullah, he died 1216. He proclaimed, quote, "I swear to dedicate my life until I reach the level of ijtihad, and then I will fight this innovation." Close quote. This is from Misbah al-Anam. He also said, quote, "Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and his followers are people of innovation because they contradict all of that which has been handed down." Close quote. This is taken from Misbah al-Anam, pages 112 to 114. Imam Alawi al-Haddad, rahimahullah, who died 1216, said in his work, The Illuminated Lamp and Clarifying the Dangers and Darkness of the One Coming from the Najd that has led common people astray. He said, quote, "And as has been mentioned from the Shaykh, the learner, the wise one, Shaykh Afifuddin Abdullah ibn Dawood al-Hanbali al-Basri, it is the case that he claimed prophethood implicitly, but not outright, and he did not expose his affair in the beginning." Close quote. This is again taken from Misbah al-Anam, pages 5 to 6. Imam al-Haddad, rahimahullah, has also said, quote, "In one chapter we will speak about the kufr of what the wretched Najdi said about Imam Abu Hanifa not being upon anything and refusing to follow the Imams, their books, rulings, and conclusions." Close quote. This is again from Misbah al-Anam, pages 23 to 24. Imam Abu Bakr ibn Muhammad al-Ahsa'i, one of the few Hanafis from Arabia, he considered the matter so serious, he actually wrote a book about takfir, about the dangers of takfir. It's about 198 pages. He said, quote, he said of this book that it had to be done for the safeguarding of the creed and safety of the Muslims. Right. We now have Imam Abdullah ibn Dawood al-Basri, rahimahullah, in his warning letter, Lightning and Thunder, in answer to the cursed Ibn Sarude. He says, quote, "So from these issues with them is the claim to prophethood. This was manifested by him not explicitly by speech, but this was done implicitly, so that the people would not reject it immediately and bear witness to what the scholars have mentioned. What the scholars have mentioned is that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, in the beginning of his affair, was shown to have reached the level of a false prophet and a liar, of the same capacity as Musaylima, Sajjah, the false prophetess, Al-Aswad al-Ansi, Tulayha al-Asadi, and others. As for his father, he was a pious man." Close quote. This is from As-Sawa'iq wal-Ru'ud fi al-Radd ala al-Shaqi Abdul Aziz ibn Saud, chapter 1, as well as Misbah al-Anam, pages 6 to 8. So we're starting to understand what all the scholars are identifying this man as, based on all the ahadith, based on all the evidences we have, how the scholars are all identifying them. Remember, these are eyewitness accounts. These are eyewitness accounts. They're not people hundreds of years later coming to some conclusion. These are eyewitness accounts. Imam Nasir ibn Sulaiman ibn Suhaim al-Zubayri, rahimahullah, he also refused to enter the Muwahideen sect. He died 1226. Then we have Imam Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Gharib, which was a particularly tragic case. He died 1208. He spoke the truth against the Muwahidun movement, and he was actually living at Dar'iyah. Now, what happened is, after 1153, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was driven from Huraylima, not by the scholars. That was going to come, but the people who were knowledgeable drove him from Huraylima. So he migrated to Ad-Dar'iyah, and he stayed there. Now, one of the people there was Imam Muhammad ibn Gharib, and he was under house arrest. So what did he do? He sent a spy to ask him about his creed. What do you say about this? What do you say about that? You know, like what happens today at masjids. What do you say about this? What do you say about that? What do you feel? How do you feel about this? As if another man would even be interested in thinking about the feelings of another man and wondering what another man is. How do you feel about this person? What do you think of this person? So when he gave the answer that he didn't want to hear, Muhammad ibn Gharib was killed. In one account it says he was drawn and quartered. You can look it up to understand how drawn and quartering works. Now, his son-in-law of Muhammad ibn Gharib, Imam Abdul Aziz ibn Hamad, he died 1231. He was an opponent of the movement, and he lived during the time of the pogroms and depopulations of several towns and villages. He was also one of the witnesses to the depopulation of At-Ta'if, when At-Ta'if was depopulated. Whole population was killed. When Muhammad Ali Basha marched against them, he assisted Muhammad Ali Basha against Salafiyah. Also, Imam Ibn Jadid al-Najdi, he died 1232. He also fought against them. And then we have the resistance that was given. And Muhammad Abdul Wahhab's response to all of this resistance was to say the following. He said, quote, "The Imams from every madhab have agreed on the fact that whoever should seize a land or a set of territories then possesses the judgment of the chief Imam in all things. If this was not the case, the whole world could not be set as right. The reason for this is that the people for a long time before Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, all the way to our time, have not been agreed upon one Imam. It is not known that any of the scholars ever mentioned that any of the juridical rulings are not valid except by the Grand Imam. However, the enemies of Allah make this doubtful matter a proof in answering something that they cannot reject, just as I had been ordered to stone the woman who committed adultery." Close quote. Now, what this is referring to is a woman at the time of Muhammad Abdul Wahhab comes out and she confesses that she's committed adultery. Now, he doesn't take the woman to the Qudha or the other people. He has her stoned to death immediately. He doesn't check for sanity. He doesn't check for mental acuity. He doesn't make sure that all the conditions are in place. Nothing. There's no due process. Yeah, you say you committed adultery? SubhanAllah, you should die. There's no due process. There's no evidences. What, you say you stole? Let me just chop your hand real quick. It doesn't work like that in the revealed law. There's a whole set of processes and things that are in place. What do you think this is? That we just say, well, you know, my father didn't get up for Fajr today. I have to kill him. He's kafir. Whoever abandons the prayer in totality has to die. So let me get my axe and head over there. What do you think this is? So-and-so stole, has to have his hand chopped. Come here. No local anesthetic. Hold on. Stay still. Don't move your arm. SubhanAllah, what do you think this is? What type of religion do you think this is? We're grabbing people. I'll give you one example very quickly before we complete this, because I know we only have a page left. You know, it would almost be funny if it wasn't so despicable. You have pictures and news reports showing photos of men accused of being homosexuals being thrown off the top of apartment blocks. Say, well, listen, we're only doing the sunnah. Because Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that homosexual, he should be thrown off the top of a building, the highest point in the city. When you look at the ruling regarding homosexuality, Open homosexuality, open public penetrative homosexuality is the death penalty. That's what's in the books. That's what's in the legal texts. But it has to be established, the proof has to be gathered, all these other things. The statement of Ibn Abbas that he should be thrown off a high building was being said in exasperation regarding the hatred for homosexuality. That expression of Ibn Abbas is not in the legal books. Why? Because it was an expression of exasperation. Someone says an expression of exasperation or makes a statement, an explicative statement, and says, sometimes I just feel like killing that guy. So someone says, well, subhanAllah, he is my friend. And he goes and kills? What did you murder Ahmed for? You said, sometimes I feel like killing that guy, so I took care of him for you. That's not the point of when explicative language is being used. Explicative language is often used because it's done for mubalagha, it's done for emphasis. I've told you 1,000 times. No, you didn't. You've only told me 5 times today. That's the recipe for getting grounded for 2 weeks. You know good and well when someone says, I've told you 1,000 times, your parent, it doesn't mean a literal 1,000 times. It means that you've been told that many times to where now you shouldn't have any reason to do this action anymore. You don't keep tally and say, well, actually, it's been more like 27. That's not, 1,000 isn't being used in that sense. 1,000 is being used in the sense to convey numerousness. So when Ibn Abbas says they should be taken and one of them should be taken and thrown off the highest building in the city, it's not a statement of, let's go ahead, bound their arms behind their back and say, fellas, close your eyes before we throw you. We don't know where you're going to land. People are being hit by falling men flying off of buildings with their arms tied behind their back that are bouncing on the ground. What on earth is this? But this is what's happening. People are literally just taking texts and saying, well, this is what it is. It has to be. Taking one statement that was made, not going back to the legal literature, not consulting the sources. People just literally opening. A brother told me before he opened Al-Mughni, yeah, I found this ruling in Al-Mughni, I've been just trying to practice on it. Listen, you don't use Al-Mughni for just practicing rulings. Are you insane? Could you imagine if someone went and said, yeah, I just went down to the library and picked up Halsbury's law book, 78 volumes, and just started practicing common law from Halsbury's. Are you insane? Do you know the type of trouble you can get in for using Halsbury's laws? You go to jail. Why? Because you don't understand what it is you're reading. You read the commentary literature. You read Stroud. You read, even Kafir laws have commentaries. The revealed law has no right to be commented. Wait a minute, hold on. I think we need to look at this before we go any further. People are saying, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what Allah said. And this is, I'll mention one last thing. See, before we go on, because this is the sickness that we're dealing with. When you talk about surveyors coming to your house and cement being laid, everyone goes to proper experts. Everyone always deals with authorities and they understand that taqleed has to be made in certain ways. But somehow when it comes to religion and especially to Islam, everyone's got their own tool belt. Everyone's Batman. Everyone's Batman has their own tool belt, has a right to, hey, I read the ayah, it's clear call, and then they've decided and they've gone with it. What is this? Someone once, a hadith was mentioned that measuring the time of dhuhr using the aniza, which is a type of staff for measuring. But aniza is also a byword for the goat. It's a type of goat as well. So when reference was being made to measuring the salah times for dhuhr, he says, yes, I did so using one. He's like, okay, well, what type of staff did you say? I didn't need him standing up. I held him down. So this individual thought to hold down an actual goat to measure the shadow of when dhuhr is to decide when it comes in, it becomes fard. Because he held down a goat. You know how sick this is? Because he doesn't know the difference between the aniza that's the staff and the aniza that's the goat. You know how foolish this makes us look. It makes us look like complete idiots. As much as an idiot as when they show video footage of women in niqab eating spaghetti through the top slit. You don't have to do that. You can lift it and eat. You don't have to do this. It makes us look like absolute buffoons. And people think that I'm glorifying Allah by having the spaghetti going through the slit because no one should see my face while I'm eating. What is this? But it's this type of thinking, this sickness, that's penetrated certain people's hearts. And the Prophet ﷺ said that this is a fitna that will penetrate. You know, it first came to the Arabs and penetrated them and caused fitna for them. So when the first radio transmitters come in, you have people reading Quran under the radio towers because they think that jinn are being transmitted and transported. This is the sickness that's being done. People saying, oh yes, the demons, they've come in because of the fact you have radio waves. People being killed because they have pocket watches, because they're being accused of divination and necromancy. Necromancy is conjuring the dead. The man has a pocket watch. But this is exactly what's going on. If someone thinks this is kidding, if you look at Ibn Saud's Holy Warriors, that's an excellent book to get, which shows how people were being killed, beat up for having pocket watches. When radio came out, people were reading Quran over radios because things were coming out of them and they couldn't explain it. Oh, it's magic. The kuffar were laughing. They were excited to publish the book, Ibn Saud's Holy Warriors. It's foolishness. So, I apologize, but this is important because these types of things, they happen again and again and again. And it goes back to one source. Okay, so we have Muhammad Abdul Wahhab's forces, Al-Ikhwan, Al-Muwahidun, depopulating towns, destroying hamlets, killing scholars. Imam Sulaiman Abdul Wahhab and other scholars began to fight defensively in the year 1165 onwards. Muhammad Abdul Wahhab decides to make takfir on the whole province of where his brother's from and everywhere else. He starts off by writing his book, Mufud al-Mustafid fi Kufri Tariq al-Tawheed, the benefit for the one seeking benefit regarding the kufr of the one that left Tawheed. That's the name of a pamphlet he wrote. Do you see the intellectual level of these people? This is pages 2 to 3. He says, quote, some doubts have been raised by one of those who claim knowledge from the people of Al-Uyayna due to the apostasy of the people of Hurimila. So the Shaikh was asked to write some words that Allah would bring some benefit with them, and so he began his statement. Close quote. So he's talking the apostasy of the people of Hurimila. That's like a province, the city and the province. Takfir on the whole thing. He didn't even begin it with Basmala because he wanted to be understood as a declaration of war, because he said, well, Allah didn't begin Surah At-Tawbah with Basmala, so I'm not beginning this with Basmala. It's a declaration of war. So the people in the towns and areas started to be killed. Hurimila, in the year 1168, there was a bloody battle, and the city was devastated and razed to the ground. Imam Sulaiman left the ruins and headed to try to defend the region of Sudair, which was now open for the Muwahidun group. Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, as is his method as well, when Imam Sulaiman Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah was in one of the local masjids awaiting the battle, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab took a mentally unstable man and put a sword in his hand, and knew that he would go to Sheikh Sulaiman to kill him. He's a mentally unstable man. And this is something we can see today. The 9/11 hijackers, the 7/7 bombers, the Exeter bomber, mentally unstable. Look at all these guys. So it's a tactic they continue to use. So this man notices Imam Sulaiman Ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah in the masjid, and Imam Sulaiman looks fearful because the man is holding an unsheathed sword. And so he says, the demon that the man had leaves him, and he says, Sulaiman, do not fear. Indeed, you are from those who have been given safety. He repeated the statement a number of times and then left the building. This is from As-Suhub al-Wabila ala Dara'ih al-Hanabila, volume 2, pages 679 to 680. Interestingly, the Salafi historian Bakr Abu Zayd, normally he leaves footnotes attacking and making takfir on different people, but this historical incident, no footnote. Why? Because because you can't answer the truth. No footnote. Muhammad Abdul Wahhab did this. And they're proud that he did these things. Imam Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah was finally captured in the year 1190 and brought by force and in chains under duress to Ad-Dir'iyah. So the ruler assisting Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, his name was Abdul Aziz ibn Muhammad, who's the son of Muhammad ibn Saud. Okay, he was the temporal ruler. He presented the tortured and injured Imam to the head of the religious establishment, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Imam Sulaiman stayed the rest of his life chained and in captivity. He outlived his younger brother and died on the 17th of Rajab in the year 1208 or 1209. He was buried in an unmarked grave in the city. Imam Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab and all the scholars with him that opposed his younger brother had never once accepted Ikhwan authority and died in this way. The son of the Imam, Imam Abdul Aziz bin Sulaiman, continued the resistance and teaching. He was the teacher of many men and transcribed so many different books, the manuscripts run into the hundreds. Imam Abdul Aziz ibn Sulaiman learned from his father, transcribed his books, and added other books to that. The oldest transcribed copies of the collected digest of legal rulings of Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, in the Arabian Peninsula, come from none other than Imam Abdul Aziz ibn Sulaiman, taken in a chain from his father. Imam Uthman ibn Humayd, a student of knowledge at the time, mentioned a dream he had about the Imam. He saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the masjid of Al-Jawz al-Gharbi in Unayza. In the dream, the Imam was praying just in front of the greatest man that ever lived, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Uthman ibn Humayd came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, greeted him, sat down, and said nothing. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam pointed to Imam Abdul Aziz and said, "This person here is the most righteous of his time." Imam Uthman ibn Humayd remarked, "Is he like how Ibn Umar was in his time?" The answer given was yes. Imam Abdul Aziz ibn Sulaiman rose to the position of Qadi and saw the lands of the Muslims taken back from the cult and retired from his post. He left the position to his son, Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Aziz al-Hanbali. As a youth, Imam Muhammad memorized every book he glanced at and was called a sign of the times due to his knowledge and wisdom. He died at the tender age of 26 in the land of Al-Ahsa in the year 1263, followed by his father a short time after. Close quote. So all the quotes we've given here, as well as خلاصة الكلام في بيان أمراء البلد الحرام من زمان سيدنا النبي إلى وقتنا هذا بالتمام, pages 347 to 350. So we've covered the signs from 1100 to 1200. Inshallah, next week we'll be looking at covering the signs that have to do with the Hajj being interrupted for a year, because that sign will come up, and we'll also be talking about some of the signs, the pre-signs before the Mahdi that have been fulfilled, because there are supposed to be 3 Mahdis. There are 3 of them actually. There's the actual Mahdi, and there are 2 precursors to the Mahdi. So we're going to be talking about that, and what part Sudan plays in end-time prophecy. Sounds crazy to say, but it's true. What part Sudan plays in end-time prophecy, as well as many other events. So, inshallah, we're probably looking at 20 pages next week. I apologize. I'm trying to keep the text not too small and not too big. I apologize, but we're coming down to the end of things, and the text is very large. More prophecies, they're coming in very quick succession. There's nothing I can really do. So I say at this point, أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم واستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يا رحمن الرحيمين. Are there questions of what we've covered today? Or are we just exhausted? Went through 16 pages. Are we finished? Yes? Okay. Yes.
Well, there were 2 sort of stages of when the Salafi sort of attacked the Hijaz and surrounding areas. In the first incursion, they were repelled and taken to Egypt. In the second incursion, they succeeded. In the second incursion, was it that they were helped with the foreign aid, and was this the case with the British that helped them, and other foreign colonial powers? I just see that there's not much has been spoken about that in the sources.
So the question is regarding the 2 periods of the Muwahidun movement. The first where they were repelled, and the second where they prevailed. Alhamdulillah. The first incident is they were conquered over by the Ottomans and the Muslims of the area in the time that fought against them. The second area occurred there. They were on the way to being defeated by a group of, I suppose you'd call them a warrior caste like the Mamelukes, but they were Hanbali Qadris, and they were called the Rashidiyya. There's a very good book, it's in Arabic, about them, called The History of the Al-Rashid. They were absolutely decimating the Muwahhidun. But when the Ottomans collapsed and the supply lines were cut by the British and the consolidation forces, the CF forces, that cut their supply lines. So they could not get weapons in and out of the country, they could not get provisions, and that led to a number of military reversals. And then in 1925, when Abdulaziz came back from Kuwait, where he had been smuggled out of. Because as far as Abdulaziz, you have to remember, Abdulaziz ibn Saud, the one that became king, he was in a knapsack over the side of a camel because the Rashidiyya had killed the entire Salafi establishment. Their leadership was wiped out. All their students of knowledge wiped out. There was nothing left but women and the children. And he was one of the ones, he was put in a knapsack because they were so scared they thought, oh, well, what if he's lost? We'll lose the pure creed. We'll lose the pure creed of Tawheed. So they put him in a knapsack and slung him over the side of a camel, and they escaped to Kuwait. And he grew there until it was time for him to come back. Now, the founding of the kingdom, the Sarude kingdom in 1953, would not have been possible without the President of the United States and other people that promised them aid and things like this. But this was well after the Rashidiyya had suffered their military reversals and everything else. This was the military reversals they'd suffered were around the 1920s of the Kafir era. So they'd already suffered the military reversals. And they'd suffered a lot of outcomes and things that happened. Whereas during this time, Abdulaziz bin Saud had built up his militias, mercenaries, foreign fighters, different people like this to assist in the wider expansion of his power base. And then by the time of 1953, when everything was consolidated, now you had Americans looking for oil, scouting for oil. He made a deal with the British. He also made a deal before Israel became a state. He made a deal with the Weissenthals. And that's why you find that of all the wars from 1948 to the most recent wars, the Saud royal family, the kingdoms, never been involved in any wars, ever. They've never said anything about Israel. They've never done anything to Israel. And Israel's never done anything to them because of an agreement that goes back, way back. And you can see footage of them meeting where it shows them on the barge, the U.S. I can't remember the name of the ship, but it's the USS, and it shows them sitting there. And Abdulaziz is just sitting, Abdulaziz bin Saud is sitting there, and the President of the United States of the time is there. And the British Premier is there. And then I think it's Simon Wiesenthal, he's there. They're all sitting like in one place. So it's not some conspiracy that I've concocted because I hate Saud, because they're Banu Tamim, and I'm not. It's something that can actually be traced. Right. Any other final questions? Yes.
Is Imam Ahmad rahimahullah the last complete Mushtari?
Yes. Yes, as what's been said by Ibn Salah and others, because the last ones were Imam Shafi'i and his contemporaries. Imam Ahmad's contemporary to Imam Shafi'i. Yes. Yes.
In which year did the younger Abdul Wahhab die?
Which younger Abdul Wahhab?
The younger.
Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab died 1206. Imam Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab dies 1208, 1209.
And in the Gregorian calendar, which year would that be?
No idea. No idea. You got to get out a calculator and figure it.
Is that fairly recent, or is that?
You're talking about at the time that they were laying that Kafir president George Washington in his grave is around the same time that they were dying. So when one Kafir was being laid to rest, one Muslim was being martyred. Close to around that time, 1790s, when they wrote that the Constitution or whatever, somewhere around that time. Yes.
Okay, so two questions from me.
Yeah.
One is the dream. So this person was he a supporter of Ibn Wahab? He's saying that his dream, saying that he was the most.
Uthman ibn Humayd.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Uthman ibn Humayd was a scholar in the time period, and he saw a dream regarding one of the sons of Sheikh Suleiman. Yeah, Sheikh Suleiman. So that's why he's asking. He's like, well, is he at the level of Ibn Omar? He's like, yes. He's like Ibn Omar was in his time.
Okay, that's last bit of the video. Okay,
That's no problem.
So, second question was, I just actually want to understand about modern Salafiyya today. So, if there was a sort of a scale of today, so like, do a lot of people know about this to this extent of Imam's kind of history and what he was like, or is a lot of it actually just born out of ignorance and they were born into it and all that kind of
Okay, so the question is sort of bordering on: do a lot of Salafis understand about what this is? When you're talking about when you're talking about any cult, you have three levels of understanding. The first are the commonality. The people of the commonality, the common people, the laity, they've not looked at the history and delved into these issues. They've grown up with it, or they've known it, and that's what they know. Okay. The second level of people will be students and seekers of knowledge, and people who have heard the history or whatever else, but don't always have a means of researching or accessing it because they're monolingual, so they can't seek it out. The third are really your gatekeepers, and they make sure that the people that look for answers are told one of two things. Number one, hey, you shouldn't be reading those books. It's not good for your iman. Or you shouldn't be asking those type of questions. It's not good for your iman. It's not good for your tawheed. It could weaken your iman. Or they say, number two, oh yes, those things have been said, but they're lies, and those people, they all repented. So they all went back to Allah, and everything is fine now, and they counted raspberry castles. The problem, though, with that is one of the most celebrated Salafi historians who was reflecting back over their history. The book is about 800 pages long, big monster book. And the author's name is Al-Bassam. He's a historian. He said, in my research, one of the wonders and amazing things of this dawah and this blessed call is that the only followers of it were the sons, grandsons, and so forth of its founder. And that none of the opponents of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab ever came to leave their position and accept his. So that's their understanding. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If you found a movement in which your only advocates are your sons and your grandsons, I mean, that's great if you're forming a family business and you're selling Frankfurters or something. But when we're talking the theology of Muslim orthodoxy and foundational religion, that's not so good, because that's just sectarianism. I mean, it's strange because this Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the damage that was done, and then the leader of the Mu'tazila in the time of Imam Ahmed and after was Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Jubai. So it's like there's been two major Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhabs. And it's unfortunate because it's not a bad name. It's just history has dealt that name when it's been dealt. Unfortunately. All right. Final question? Shall we close? Yes.
Sure. I had a question regarding the understanding of scholars and ijtihad. Today, that seems to be mostly eroded away in the understanding. And it all comes down to the theology and the teachings of the Salafiyya being exported worldwide. But what I wanted to ask was, during the time in its infancy, did the layman understand and recognize the differences between who was a layman and who wasn't, and who was rightfully in the post to do ijtihad, and who wasn't. Because after these people are saying, oh, this person, I don't know why the people consider him a scholar, and this person, he's not a scholar, and that kind of thing.
So the question is, in ages past, did people understand the distinction between laity and scholars, and who had the right to make ijtihad or not? The best way to do this is to go back to the time of the companions, where you look at examples where the Prophet ﷺ, he would intentionally, when some companions came to him, he would say, if you don't find me, go see Abu Bakr. Go see such and such. Or go to them. When Mu'adh ibn Jabal is asked, before he's sent to Yemen and Sham, what shall you do? So he's actually given the keys of ijtihad. So this was known in their time, who the people are that are in charge. No one, if you look, when Khilafah was being chosen or Qadis were being decided, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari was never on the list. Because Abu Dharr al-Ghifari was a layman. But he was never on a list of like scholars or decision making, because that's not his post. It's not his position. That's not his, and people knew that. Letter carriers, people that were couriers for the Prophet ﷺ weren't Qadis. They were couriers. Couriers and laymen and preachers versus your mujtahids and Qadis, distinctions were made between these people. And it's something that carried on into the latter ages. People came to be recognized when Ali rapped Al-Hasan al-Basri's Amama for him. That, okay, this person, he's in charge of things. You know, this person is in charge because I'm bequeathing this knowledge to you. So this knowledge and who's in charge of things, the post of ijtihad and giving ijtihad is conferred. It's not earned. Someone can't go and read 1,000 books and it's digging. Okay, that's it. I've reached it now. It's conferred from one to another, It's conferred. Because the process that one goes through, to go through these, if you look at the fact that the companions were around the Prophet ﷺ for 13 years in Mecca, and then another 10 in Al-Madinah, some only 10 in Al-Madinah because they became Muslim in Al-Madinah, that process of being surrounded by revelation, and then being deemed fit after rigorous checking of them, because they're constantly around him, listening to Hadith, having their behavior and their etiquettes upgraded, being upbraided sometimes being rebuked, sometimes being praised, sometimes being examined. This whole process going on. So when the companions head out to somewhere, they're all going out as a body, but only some of them are teaching. The 3 to 10,000 that went to Al-Basra, yeah, there were layman companions, but they weren't teaching there. The ones that were teaching were Anas ibn Malik or Utbah ibn Ghuzwan, and no one burst out in the middle of the class, hey, what about this? Vast majority of companions were laity. But the names, the people that are giving rulings and giving fatwas and everything else, that's the same names popping up. Anas ibn Malik, Aisha, Al-Hasan, Al-Husayn. It's constantly the same names popping up. Because those are the people in charge of affairs. Right? So what we'll do, inshallah, is yes.
So one last question.
Right.
It's more to do with next steps, because if you look at today, especially in places like London and stuff, it's the Salafi Dawah that's the most strongest, and so all the youth and the youngsters are like they're going towards this route. So is there anything that you advise?
Okay, so the question is regarding Salafiyah and its strength in places like London. Well, I think first of all you need to understand your enemy, because in general Salafis are the enemies of Allah in a general sense, without each and every single one being an enemy. You need to understand how that came to be. We are in an environment where Muslim children are encouraged and told by their parents to go to Kafir schools. So then they do. And the walls of what knowledge of religion they have are eroded. Then they finish going to those Kafir schools. Then they have an identity crisis. Because they keep being told that they're Muslim, but they keep being told that they're Kafir. And one of them must win. Then they go to university. In the United States, the Muslim student associations were the product of ICNA, Islamic Circle of North America, Arab Salafis from the 1960s that invaded, from WAMI, World Assembly of Muslim Youth, and that's what they do to you when they get you. They put a whammy on. And the Islamic Society of North America. Pakistani Salafis and Jamaat Islamis and Tanzimi Islami type people poisoning the Asian youth. Here they chose a different method because it was smaller. They said, we're not going to split in two. We're going to just make it one big thing. FOSIS, the Federation of Student Islamic Societies. And then it funnels down into all your eye socks. So when you're in university and you're in your incubancy phase, you're now coming alive after being spiritually dead, and Allah's quickening you. Here's somebody with cyanide capsules. You're already surrounded by kufr. For 15 years, all you've been taught is kufr. And you're trying to come out of it. Now here's some more kufr. But now they're twisting La ilaha illallah. Before your issue was La ilaha illallah or not. Now it's which La ilaha illallah. So now we're making La ilaha illallah into Amway. Which detergent do you want? This one scrubs stains and also removes the ring around your bathtub. This one here, it takes the mustache off your wife's mouth. So it's competing La ilaha illallah, and they can't all be right. The only way to accurately combat this is to create a third rail. A third rail will involve creating environments. They will be small, concentrated family groups of Muslims. The Catholics have started doing it, and they're pagans. Small, concentrated Muslim families of people who will be home educating. And then gathering data. When the children get older, they will then want them to learn a skill or a trade or whatever else, but they've now been inoculated, incubated long enough to where when they now go out into the world, they now have the ability to resist and say, I'm not here for this, or this. I'm only here to get this. Because the way you're going about it, you are literally taking a child out of the womb and giving him sugar water as his formula. So he's set up for diabetes. Then when he gets to be 34, he says, I don't know, he's got diabetes, he's taking insulin. How did this happen? Because he had the sugar water from the time he was born. He was under big halogen lights. He was born under big halogen lights, given sugar water as his formula, told not to breastfeed. So we don't know why he doesn't have a connection with his mother. He's put in a barred playpen when he's a little kid. He's in and out of juvenile hall, which looks like the playpen, and he doesn't know why he has an affinity of going back in and out there. All this other stuff that's being done to him. 15 years of kufr. And it'll take 10 years to deprogram it. And he's been vaccinated. So he's got scarring on his brain tissue, which will take another 5 years to heal. And it's like, what shall we do? I mean, what you've got to do is the wave of 3 generations that's come out, forget about them. Not because they're lost. The wheat that Allah has harvested out of that chaff will come to fruition. It's the next set of guys. Because there's a conveyor belt going. It's the next set of guys. What's going to happen to the next set of guys? Will they know what it is to be a man? Will they know what it is to be in charge? Will they know what it is to be safe and free and independent? Or will they go in to get their vaccinations and they say, well, we're just going to give you an up-to-date flu shot, and they inject an RFI chip into them as well because the syringes are so big they can get them in there now. These are the types of things. So what will happen is there will be smaller groups of families. People will start to create, it's already slowly in its infancy stages of people creating little communities of families. 2, 3 families of 2 kids each. So that's 6 kids. right? Where they're just coming together and saying, we're going to try it out. See what happens. Because they've realized that they've still got dust on them that takes 15 years to get out. Guy tells you up and down every day, I love Allah and His Messenger, I love Allah and His Messenger. You get him married and you're hearing about women's lib and how I'm equal and you can't tell me anything and everything else. So what we get married for? If we're both doing the dishes, we're both cleaning everything else, I could just stay single and do that myself. What if it's just for sex? Then if it's just going to be for sex, then sex needs to be on demand. No, sex isn't on demand. It's got to be about equality. Okay, so then why are we married then? So we're just roommates then. What is this? Bosom buddies? This is foolishness. You have to get back to what is marriage, what is the core of what all these things are, what are gender roles, what's gender. It's like we have to re-explain this stuff. Now, when they're little, it's fine because their minds are uncorrupted. There's no scar tissue on the brain. We've not damaged their immune system. We've not filled them full of white sugar. That drops by 10 points their IQ. We've not done this to them. So they'll know that, hey, I'm a boy. I should be grabbing the army men and playing with those, and I'm a girl. I should be grabbing the other things. Right? Those things are there. You have to safeguard that, because for 15 years to bring a kid all the way out of that, I understand why a boy would say, I want to be a girl now, because of 15 years of mental devastation. Of course, you're going to say anything. There's people saying, I want to be a snake. I've always been a snake. There's people that are trans species now. I want to be a snake. No, I want to be a camel. No, I want to be a porpoise. Well, 15 years of hardcore propaganda and mental destruction, that's going to happen to you because you've been irreparably damaged. So Salafiyya is a symptom. And Salafiyya is a type of kufr, and because it's a type of kufr, it functions well with other types of kufr. That's why it's allowed. If you notice these things, they all thrive in democratic countries. Because the countries that put up with kufr. Hey, listen, this is a civil society. It's a democratic society. Yeah, you know where I was headed. This is a civil society. It's a democratic society. You just live and let live. The lion sees the lamb, they sort of shrug, and they move on through the forest together. In places where that's not the case, they're brutally driven underground. People can say what they want to about Egypt. Something can happen to you out there if you follow that stuff and you go to the wrong place. You could come up missing. You could come up with a headless body with just a torso. Because people aren't feeling that out there. Not now. So you've got to take the beginning steps where it's starting from the kids when they're small. What's my kid doing? Who's teaching my kid? Who's my kid looking up to? When I was little, my heroes were my uncle, my dad, my granddad, and our old tribal folk leaders. Those were like my heroes. I want to be like those guys, right? That's what it starts out as. And as they grow into men, they start to find their own way. But you have to create those initial heroes, those initial role models, and the importance of extended family and all these other things. All that stuff is important. So those are the initial stages. You send your kids to learn from a stranger, and you have no home input with them. So then they come home and start talking crazy to you. It's like, well, you sent me to them, and they're telling me I don't got to listen to you. And I'm with them 8-9 hours a day, so I'm coming home talking crazy to you and flexing on you and standing over you while you're eating and everything else because they said I don't need to excuse myself to get up from the table. So then you're flooring your kids and breaking their jaws, breaking their eye socket, and going to jail because you said I'm going to enforce my authority in the house, and you're getting 10, 15-year bids. Why? Because there's this dual tug of war that's going on. Now, some of it's not our fault. Some of it isn't, because some of us were part of that system, so we just did what we knew because we were in the system. A dog only eats his own vomit when he sees his father do it. A dog will look and see, oh, he's doing it, and the dog will try to make himself vomit so he can eat, because dogs by nature, they make taqlid. A dog in normal circumstances, a German Shepherd won't eat his own vomit. The Shepherd, the Siberian Husky, all these proper, pure, thoroughbred animals, they do this as taqlid because they look to the elders of the other animals. It's the same thing with us, although we're better than dogs. And although we're to be lorded over them as authority, we still though have traces where we use taqlid. So we have to make sure that the taqlid that's initially established is the right one, where the kids are looking, yeah, my dad's, he's in charge, and my uncle's my hero, or whatever men in the family are their heroes. You create the right role models for them so they can make decisions. They won't be perfect, but they'll be firmly established. They'll be firmly established so that whether they die young at 15 or 16 or 12, or when they're 97, whatever, you'll be like, Alhamdulillah, I know I did everything that I could. But you understanding what you know now, if you're going to have a kid, not to put yourself in that situation. To put 11, 12, 13 different vaccines inside of someone's body who's only as big as from your fingertips to the end of your elbow. And then to put them in an environment where there's an entirely different system, and the teacher saying, until you say cheers, I'm not giving you your treat, your graham cracker treat, and he gets home and he's saying cheers all the time, you don't know why. Because it's been broken in. These guys go into a daycare center, and you watch the whole progression. You see them at a young age, you rip them away from the parents, and the parents do it on purpose. They're just going into a daycare center. Then when you get old, where do you go? You go to an old folks home. I'm too busy, I don't have time. And it's like they're giving you back the same thing. I don't have time for this, I'm too busy. You put him in a playpen. He's 5 years old. He's holding the bars and he's crying and everything else. Then when he's 16, he's crying. He's in juvenile hall. And then he's crying and he's in the state penitentiary. Then he's crying and he's in the Supermax in Florence. There's a link between all this other stuff. There's a link between it. One of my friends, I saw his little brother inside one of those little things, and I thought, yeah, he's going to go in. Then when I went back in 2005, I said, yeah, what's going on with Melvin? Oh, no, he's gone. He's away. He's upstate. How long? 20 years. Because he started like this. And he's going to end like this. It's what we reinforce. Final point I'd say is this. The final point I want to say is this. Very final point. And then we'll close. As fathers, we have to make sure that we have a good relationship with our kids. And young male children, when they're young, they need that bonding with their father, like hugging and playing with their dad, and just like they need that touching, that bonding, because that's a protection. That's a protection from them. That lets them know that it's okay to show love to your father, and your father to show love to you. It's a protection against homosexuality, because it accurately shows what men's relationship should be to each other. This is how an elder's relationship is with his parents, and it also stabilizes them as children. So when they get older, they're stable in their masculinity. I'm a man. It's not wrong to be, to show affection towards other people. Oh, I respect you, brother, or I love you for the sake of Allah. It's not wrong. That affection balanced in the right way is good. And because some of us have been made to think that, oh no, we must always be strong and hard, and that's what we do. We're men. I'm not a homo. Okay, that's true that you're not homosexual, but that's the balanced way, is not to now refuse all and say, okay, because you don't think that a boy sees when you're hugging the daughter and everything else, and you just come in and you give him a gentle punch in the shoulder. Hey, son, he's, well, why doesn't my dad want to hug me? So he doesn't get the opportunity to bond with you or to relate with you. So what does he do? He relates to his sister. He relates to his mom, because those are sources of affection. So, spend time with the boys and play with them and do other stuff, but hug them and sit them down on your knee and talk to them and different stuff like this, because they form these bonds. So they have a good opinion of their fathers when they see them. And then when they get older, advise them. When they get older, advise them. Have a good opinion. Say, okay, well, what would you like to do? When they start hitting 12, or 11, 12, that's when you start saying, what do you think? Now, before it's like, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. When you're between that toddler stage all the way up till, say, 8, 9, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, because you're rehearsing them in knowledge so that they carry it out without thinking. Then when they start hitting 10, 11, what do you think? What would you like to do? This is what happened with Nabiuna Ismail alayhi salam. Nabiuna Ibrahim alayhi salam had a dream about sacrificing Nabiuna Ismail. He said, what do you think? Subhanallah. I'd be scared if someone said that now. What do you think, brother? I had a dream I was killing you. What do you think? 43 years old. Listen, I say that if you just give me a second, step out of the door over there, you won't catch me. He said to his son, his son is 13 or something. What do you think? And Nabiuna Ismail alayhi salam, he says, do what Allah has commanded, and we will be steadfast if Allah so wills. But the fact that he consulted with him, because he's at that age now where you can start consulting. Some people, they always see, oh, he's always my little boy. Well, when you infantilize him, that's what he's going to be. And he won't grow properly. You have a tree and you water it like once a month, and say, subhanAllah, it's not budding, it's stunted. Yes, because that's what you've created. Then, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, you create this man-child, and then you then turn him over to the wife. So the wife is like a second mother now. So she's got to mother him for another 40 years because the mother smothered him and the dad just watched it. So now he's a man-child or a male baby. So he's handed over and here you go. Here's your man-child. So she has to, okay, hopefully I'll make it until 80. But no, you want to have a good relationship with your sons. Try to have the best relationship you can because they're going to be the ones that will choose the next wives, the next mates, the next foundations of. It's going to be them that are going to do it. Because people say, "Oh, if you teach a woman to society, that's bunkum. That's pure Gloria Steinem CIA nonsense." You put that out of your mind. You put that out of your mind, out of sight. You open your brain up. You take the infected material out and you toss it to the side. Here's what it is. You teach a man, you teach a whole family. Because the husband comes home, he says, honey, guess what I found out today? And so a woman by nature makes taqleed of her husband. By nature. People that are married know that. They can hear their wives sometimes repeating stuff they've said verbatim, and it's like Mount Sinai's voice thundering down. But it's because, I heard this today, and it's repeated like facts, verbatim. And if you've cultivated the right relationship with your wife, that's good. Because she's like, yeah, we shouldn't do that. Why? Because it's bad to do. SubhanAllah, it's terrible. Right? So it's like you have an advocate. So if you do that, and now what happens? The father, he says this to his husband, honey, look what I found out. And the wife, in the absence of the father, reinforces those lessons for the kids. And then when there's questions against the mother's authority, because kids press the authority, when the father gets home, the father reinforces what was said. So there's that constant circle of reinforcement with the kids, because kids by nature are rebels. So they look for cracks in the system, and you have to use child psychology to get the best of them. Right? You have to do that because the hemispheres of their brains aren't fully fused yet. So you have to use all types of skill and weaponry and child psychology against them in a good way. But you have to use that against them. So that's why it's important that fathers bond with their sons. So I'll close here. Inshallah, next week we'll be looking at the Mahdi of the Sudan, the Hajj being stopped, and a number of other things. So we say, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. إنه غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين ولا إله إلا الله والسلام عليكم.